I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're exploring a powerful, deeply personal story of brokenness, healing, and spiritual transformation. The name of the book, Who Am I? A woman's journey of transformation from a child of the flesh to a child of God. It's written by a terrific author. Her name is Elaina Lee Richter. And in the book, she shares her courageous path through pain, betrayal, and toxic relationships to ultimately discover God's unconditional love. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Elaina, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is a powerful story. What made you decide it was important to share it with the world by writing this book?
Well, I actually started it out as when I was going through my divorce as more of just a, woman in her late 30s, navigating, dating and everything like that. I ended up meeting somebody and stopped writing the book. After about 2 years, it was a very abusive relationship. And after 2 years in that, I ended up having a coming to Jesus moment. And I ended up ending the relationship. And part of my healing journey from that was to just go back to my childhood, try to figure out why I ended up like this. Everything that I had gone through, what happened to me, to allow myself to be in this type of relationship. So writing the book was basically part of a recovery process for me. It switched from the dating game, which there's still parts of that in there, but then it became more of a focus on how God has been talking to me and planting seeds in my life ever since I was a kid, and how all of these things were allowed to, he allowed to happen to me in order to get to where I'm at now. So it was, it's very just a much of a healing process for me, just basically like a large journal entry. And I also just wanted to write it for other, people, women in particular, going through similar, experiences and relationships that I had, as just a way to, be able to let them know that there is hope and, other things out there to look forward to, and that you don't have to, you know, res- resort to, drinking and abusive relationships and, promiscuity to fill a void, that there's a much deeper, deeper thing there. So.
Exactly, exactly. And so many people do go through hard times. They do go through bad relationships. They do feel like they've turned away from God a little bit. You're blessed that God came back into your life, or you came back into his life, however you describe it. Was there a moment where you kind of felt a calling that you felt that you should get closer to Jesus and change the way you were living your life?
Yes. So it was, like I said, about 2 years into my abusive relationship. Um, I started trying to go to church myself. But something always happened where I would be driving on my way there, and he would call and say that he refused to let my blind senior citizen dog back inside if I went to church without him, and just things like that, which I, equate back to, Satan, trying to keep me away. But finally, I went one day by myself, and there was, a very powerful sermon, and a song came up at the end that was, the lyrics are, that, I am a child of God, and that just hit me. That was my coming to Jesus moment, because I had been called so many names by him. He was very, verbally abusive, um, I was almost made to believe that I was those things. But that moment in church when, that I learned that, God is my father, and, I am a child of God, that was the opening moment for me. And I just cried, and ended up talking to my pastor, afterward that day, and he just prayed over me, and it was just very powerful. I always thought that kind of stuff was weird, and but that was really my moment, back in August of 2022.
Wonderful. What do you think drew you into the toxic relationship or draws people in general into toxic relationships? Do you think they feel they don't deserve anything better?
Uh, Subconsciously,
Mhm.
yes. I do, I'm very successful in my career. I always prided myself on being, a catch. And so I didn't, think that I lacked the confidence and self-esteem to end up in a relationship like that. Which is why I wanted to really go back and see what caused me to become, like this. And I think for me, after, being in a, in a marriage and then going through the divorce, and I just wanted opposite of pretty much everything that I had done. And I had been in a relationship since very, very young. I never had that dating experience. And if you read the book, it's, it there I have, parental issues, looking for, trying to please them. And basically, as I got older, trying to look to fill that void, by dating and trying to get into a relationship fast. So after getting married young and having kids, I went the opposite route and just went crazy. And then I allowed myself to be swooped up, in a whirlwind, love bombing narcissist relationship. And it's hard being out of it now and seeing people that I know and love in it, and them not seeing it. But I myself didn't see it. I stayed for 2 years, and it was physical, it was emotional, it was verbal. And I still have, medical problems from it that remind me of it every day. But I look back at that self and I'm like, why did you stay? There's things that I could have gone back and I can say that I regret, but I really don't, because once again, all of that ended up leading me to that moment that I had in church that day. And my life is just so much more fulfilling now. And, I'm not angry with that person. I've forgiven him. And, um, it my life is so much more complete now.
Wonderful, wonderful. All of our lives are a redemption story. I mean, the story of Jesus is a redemption story. So we all at one point in our lives need to be redeemed. We fall into a place where we don't want to be. And if we do have faith, if we are blessed by God, we will find a way out. What would your advice be to women who feel trapped in toxic relationships?
That's a tough one because, what I've learned is you have to want to get out yourself. And it doesn't matter, if your closest family, closest friends, I mean, people told me for, months and months and months, to get out. And you have to you have to be able to come to that, those terms on your own. So my advice, would just be to really go back and, they usually know they're in a toxic relationship. And what happens is the good times, which, may come very infrequently, they end up holding on to them. And I would say, for me, it was a codependency thing, which I didn't even know what that meant. And I learned that I was codependent. It's this need to people please, and this need to want to fix somebody. And it's usually rooted, from childhood, or some kind of, life event, or having, an addict of some sort in your life that you were never able to, please or fix or anything like that. So I think these women are holding on to the idea of love and these men who are good in those periods. But, the answer is, we deserve to have that all of the time. And, my advice really is to, you know, seek therapy. I did all kinds of, I read a million self-help books about codependency and boundary setting, settings, things like that. Obviously, I went to church, and those groups really helped me out a lot. I did a combination of all of this and journaling. I mean, this whole book is my journal, and each chapter begins with a real journal entry that I had taken out of my journal starting back from when I was 12 years old is
Wow.
the opening chapter
Yeah.
that I still had. So that's a, so it journaling, all of that, helps obviously to talk to people that have been through it, support groups. I just joined a codependency anonymous group, because that is a form of addiction too. You're addicted to people, and wanting that, confidence and that esteem and things like that. So, um, I would just really want people to dig into their past, and as hurtful as it can be, it's such a freeing experience when you allow yourself to go through all that pain and be able to come out of it, and then, just be free.
Yeah. So many of our traumas as adults are rooted in our traumas as children, and we're not aware of it. The scripts that are written for us when we're children and very impressionable kind of play out for the rest of our lives. If you're trying to please a parent always to get their
Mhm.
love or get their approval, you might do the same thing with a partner, and it's a
Yeah.
bad cycle. I'm glad you broke it. Um, what was it like writing this book? Was it cathartic? Was it freeing? Was it painful? Talk to us about the process of writing it.
I would say all of the above. Like I said, it just the beginnings of each chapter take journal entries, and a lot of those I had written during this relationship, and it was really hard going back and reading, after I've already been out of the relationship, and I'm, the happiest I've ever been in my life, and I've got Jesus. And it was really painful going back and reading those journal entries, and I didn't change a word on them. Um, to get that, authentic, feeling out there. And I felt bad for that person who I was that would take that stuff. But also once again, all that happens to be able to get to where I'm at now, and uh all that I've learned and what I've learned not to take, and what a healthy relationship is and could be, and that I don't need to, do things I don't want to do with a man in order to, make him happy, because it's about me and my body and my relationship with God. So it was very freeing afterwards. But it was painful as well. But I needed to do it. I wrote it, I finished it, and I'm just like, all right, that chapter is closed and time to move on.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're glad you did find the courage to write this book because I think it's going to be super helpful to anyone who is experiencing challenges in their lives. And let's face it, at one point, we all face a challenge or multiple challenges in our lives, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And for
Mhm.
many, of course, that light is the Lord Jesus Christ. The name of the book is Who Am I? A Woman's Journey of Transformation from a Child of the Flesh to a Child of God, a moving testimony of hope, healing, and God's unending pursuit of our hearts. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, your wit, your wisdom, your insight, and your courage. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on the Global Book Network.